In the previous episode, we finished the safety frame and got the final outlines of the body. We took the car outside and were finally convinced that the shape, proportions and body suit us more than enough. And that means we won't be redoing the frame anymore. All that's left is to finalize the small details and prime it. Valera took care of this. The only place we didn't manage to finish in the previous episode is the base of the struts. They need to be refined. A bit of sheet metal, an angle grinder, tack welding, and the remnants of Valera's nerves. Now you'll understand what I'm talking about.
What is there?
There aren't any film.
After approximately 2 hours, Valera finally, indeed, ultimately one side is ready, but the second side had to be handled by Andre. In the end, it looks like this. The next step is to prime the frame. First, we thoroughly degrease it. As you remember, in the previous episode, Andre was noted for excessive spending. As a result, it was decided that he would buy the degreaser and wipes with his own money. And as you can see, he is indeed using his own materials. We mix a little black primer, stir it well, and can start working. Andre took on this task. As you may have noticed, the guys often work without respirators, and the cameraman is no exception. This is roughly how the whole process looks from the outside after an hour in the paint shop without a respirator. In the previous episode, we also quickly tackled the bumper, which we roughly primed to paint and show the overall look. We were satisfied with everything, which means we can perfect it. That's what you see on the screen. First, we level the surfaces and remove the traces of gluing. At this stage, it's important to align two elements in one plane, the main body and the bumper. As you can see, there's work to be done here. This is done as follows. First, the adjacent surfaces are sanded using sandpaper with a block. Then another measurement with a spatula and more hours of sanding. After the elements are as closely fitted to each other as possible, we proceed to puttying. This is the final, more precise finishing. At this stage, we use simple water-based wall putty precisely because it is water-based. Automotive putty, by the way, interacts with foam board like this. And as you understand, this doesn't really suit us. But of course, water-based putty has its drawbacks. Firstly, it cannot be applied in a thick layer. And we, by the way, had such tasks. Secondly, it dries slowly. That's why it took more than 10 days of Andre's work to perfect the bumper, layer by layer, day by day. By that time, the safety frame had dried 10 times over and we could do another fitting.
Another fitting of our shell, to understand what problems we might face in the future. And the issue is that our Bugatti threshold is much higher and a bit wider than the Ford's. We have about 15 centimeters of space that we need to fill with something. This is exactly where the joint of the fiberglass shell and the Ford's metal body will be. There are thoughts to order and carefully bend a metal profile, something L-shaped or similar, weld it to the rusty Ford and then securely connect the fiberglass to the metal.
2 days later, Andre visited his mother and returned with these goodies. This will serve as the foundation for the future thresholds. All that's left is to fit, trim, and install it into the body. Valera was working on fitting it in place, while Andre was adjusting the plate that will connect the box to the Ford's body. Of course, modern technology is indispensable here. However, Andre is still having trouble figuring them out completely. To fit this panel to the door frame as closely as possible, we had to tinker with it. In some places we cut the profile lengthwise. We also make numerous cuts in the areas where we will bend the shape. We adjust, try it on, and repeat this many times. Once the shape is mostly fitted to the opening, we prepare for welding. As you can imagine, the solvent fumes still haven't dissipated, and the operator sees the scene in the garage just like that. In the end, fitting the threshold took about 6 hours Valera and 2 cutting discs.
And our number one task is to connect our Bugatti shell with the car's base. We've now done a rough fit for everything. Now we will dismantle everything, treat it, with zinc primer to prevent rust in the future, and then we will reassemble everything.
At this stage before welding, we need to clean the body in the areas where the metal will be welded, because later we will have no access to the inside of this box. Therefore we prime it in advance, specifically with zinc primer for welding or welding primer. What is the point of this? To remove the paint and apply primer. The fact is that in the welding areas the temperature is very high and the usual coating burns off. Consequently, the metal is exposed and we have potential corrosion hotspots inside the box. However, the special primer does not succumb to these provocations and holds firmly even at such temperatures, something like that. The next step is to assemble the already primed puzzle. To cut the door precisely, you need to understand how the opening and the threshold will look. We figured out the first part, but for now, our threshold is in a foam version. We will make it using exactly the same method as the body and bumper. You've seen this more than once. So, in a few words, we prime the foam blank. Then we putty it and refine the shape to perfection. After a couple of days, the result satisfies us and we can take a mold from this form. We apply a release agent. This is an alcohol-based release agent. It creates a thin film which allows the mold to easily detach from the master model, that is the foam threshold. I often come across comments saying that there's no trace of Bugatti here and that we're merging a Ford and a Volga. So for understanding, the market value of a Chiron is about $3 million or 230 million rubles. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't generate enough income for us to afford such a project. However, a Ford probe can be bought a bit cheaper. Yes, a few more words about expenses. Many are aware that monetization on YouTube is disabled. As a result, many channels are closing and projects are being abandoned. We're trying to stay afloat, but I'll be honest, it's not easy. The monthly expenses for building the Volgatti are around 5,000 or 400,000 rubles. This includes the salaries of the team, video shooting, editing, and consumables. I do not take my own participation into account. My firm stance is that the content for you should be free. It's enough that you watch the ads, and thank you to those who don't skip them. In general, at the moment, the only way for the project and channel to exist is to release short, frequent episodes. Of course, if people watch them, like comment and definitely please share the video anywhere, these actions will help the project continue to exist. And now, further work on adjusting the threshold is on your screen. Valera measured everything precisely, adjusted, hammered and caulked it, and after another 3 Valera hours we have this kind of box which is ultimately welded on all sides with reliable thick metal. And unfortunately, you can no longer hide contraband in there. Although it's not certain that it wasn't done beforehand. In the end, we trim the edge that was made with extra material, prime it, and have this beauty.
That's all wonderful, Valera, but I would have made fiberglass sills. Metal will rust and rot. Well, go ahead and do it on that side. No? And this is my precious.
The door has been found and we can start fitting it. First we disassemble it, taking out all the components, the glass, the guides, the lock and the window regulator. The next step is to cut the bottom of the door, leaving a small margin. This part prevents installation of the door into the new, narrower door frame. And finally the first fitting. We look, assess, understand what needs to be adjusted and make the adjustments. Then we put the door back on and here's what we have.
The first introduction of our door to the new threshold, right? Listen, it's turning out quite well.
It's fine.
Well, it's great. So what do we have in the end? In the end, we cut out this panel and shortened the door. The door fits perfectly into the opening. The only question we have now is how and with what to cover this niche. The drainage, the water outlet, the plumbing, well, basically this platform. We have this element left. I don't know if we can use it or not. What do you think, Andriuka? Well, yeah, you can fit a scrap here with a hammer stubble, stick something here. Try to make it work. To just weld it there? Well, you could, yeah. I think it's a workable option. What do you think, Valera? I'm telling the entire right flank that no one is going to mess with this old crap. We'll order a new panel of galvanized stainless steel, install it here and neatly cover everything with fiberglass. It will be a new door with curves and reliefs. Him not to touch fiberglass. He wants to cover all his welding with fiberglass. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. Fiberglass, metal, the main thing is that it's strong and reliable as you do. So decide for yourself what to try. Using the old method, rock, paper, scissors. 1, 2, 3. I won. Therefore, my option is that we order a new panel and integrate it here. In the end, we manufactured this new part, carefully integrated here, and all that's left is to give it the correct curves. And we'll have a completely new bottom of the door, with the old holes. And where will the water drain? We'll drill. That's it. We'll simply leave a drainage hole.
In the end, that's exactly what was done. The beautiful new panel was fitted around the entire perimeter, slightly trimmed, bent, hammered, roughly secured with screws, and the next day, after welding, we have this result, which we are quite satisfied with. The next step is to fit the door trim. For this, we cut it off, place it on the body, and adjust it on site. Then we head to the Volga donor to remove the handle. In the final version, the door will be slightly shorter, and right behind it will be the air intake, just like in the original Bugatti. More detailed footage and unique materials from the workshop can be found on our Telegram channel. I decided not to make a dull copy of the channel on Telegram, so there you'll find only unique material and daily behind-the-scenes content from the workshop. I look forward to seeing everyone, you won't regret it.